Hey everyone, welcome to the Power Monkey podcast. I am your host, Dave Durante, with my two co-hosts this week, my normal co-host, Chad Vaughn, as well as the man himself, Chris Hinshaw, and we are talking everything CrossFit Open related. This week being the second week of 3, it's going to be 22.2, 2 movements to worry about here. We have deadlifts and bar-facing burpees, an ascending and descending ladder, 1 to 10 and 10 to 1. This workout is going to be much more challenging than maybe the 4 athletes made it look during the open announcement. In fact, I wouldn't really watch those 4 athletes and use it as a template for how you should approach it. So hopefully you'll be able to get some good tidbits on how to approach the workout, how to pace, how to save your back, how to make sure that you can stay nice and fresh and get ready to go for the third workout next week. Before we get into the actual podcast, I want to mention our sponsor for this week. The sponsor for our podcast in week 2 is Legends. We are so excited to have Legend on as our apparel sponsor for 2022. They are awesome. I'm wearing one of my hoodies right now that we had from our previous Power Monkey camp. Their apparel is kick ass. They have anti-microbial technology, moisture wicking, and durable fabrics. But on top of that, they're just the kind of stuff you want to wear. I wear my stuff everywhere. I wear it to the grocery store. I wear it to the gym. I wear it to laying around the house at night. They're just awesome fabrics, but also great aesthetics, something that actually makes you look good as well as making you feel good when you work out. We are pumped to have them on board with our camp and with our courses that we teach around the world as well. We're lucky to have them on board for 2022 and beyond. So keep an eye out for Legends apparel moving forward. If you are interested in actually purchasing, we do have a quick discount code for you that is available and working from now until Monday at midnight. You can get 20% off your next order of Legends apparel with the code PMF20. That's all caps, PMF20. Go to that Legends website, check out their apparel. I'm going to guarantee that you're not going to be disappointed with the quality of the fabric and the look. They have awesome stuff. The stuff sells out super fast, so make sure if you find something you like, go ahead and get it as quickly as possible. Legends apparel, you guys are going to love it. Now let's get to the podcast. All right, everybody, welcome back for our little recap for 22.2. But before we get into it, I want to go back 1 week and do a couple things. One, give a little bit of a rundown of how our leaderboard for Power Monkey went for 22.1. We have actually, first place is one of our Power Monkey coaches, which is kind of cool from our list. We have about almost 50 people that are right now part of our Power Monkey crew on the games website. And in first place with a score of 296 is Andy Tim out of Arizona. Go Andy. That's a pretty badass score for a 41-year-old. Awesome to see. And in second place, our top female athlete, 5-time Power Monkey camper, not a part of our staff, but we love her. Linda Elston, CrossFit Games podium athlete, incredible athlete, just came off of winning Wodapalooza a few weeks ago. She had 291. So nice. Those are some beast scores from some of the Power Monkey community out there. I myself had a score of 255. So I actually got 15 reps into the 9th round. So I think after we had our conversation, I thought around 8 rounds was where I was going to be and ended up a little bit further than that. So I didn't see you guys on the leaderboard. Just kind of curious where both of you guys ended up. Chad, Chris, why don't you start out? How'd it go for you?
Oh, you're gonna make me start? Well, yeah, we're not on the leaderboard. I don't have a home gym right now or a place to get officially scored. So you guys are gonna have to take my word for it. But if I was gonna lie, I would come up with a better score than I actually got. I ended up doing, I think, 185 reps, so six rounds plus 5 reps. So Dave, you certainly got me pretty handily on that one. But I'm looking forward to this next one. So,
what was the sticking point for you?
I feel like I've moved really at a pretty consistent pace throughout the whole thing. I think my pace just isn't quite quick enough to keep up with you. But I would say probably if there was a sticking point, it was definitely the wall walks. I mean, those caught up to me pretty quickly, and certainly a slower pace than the other 2 movements for sure.
All right. What would say your number one more time? 180 what?
185. So 6 rounds plus 5 reps into the 7th round. So
wait, you got Mike's service by 2 reps. 183 for service.
Well, then it's a win for me. Like, that's all I need. And also Chris gave me that goal of 6 rounds. So if it wasn't for that, I'm not sure if I would have made it even that far. So
love it. What about you, Chris?
I got 147.
Nice.
So I think I think my goal, what did I go on camera saying? Five?
I think you said 7 rounds.
Oh, no, I did not.
Oh, we'll have to go back and listen. We're going to have to check it out.
I think you did.
In fairness, I ran 13 miles the day before.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. That's like going to the grocery store for you, though. That's
Yeah, that's like me. I did 6 sets of 5 in the back squat at 80% as a warm up right before the workout. So that's, I mean, you know,
all right, don't start with this. What do we did before? I did a half an hour handstand before.
But I'm saying we can't. I'm saying we can't count that, right? That's part of our discipline. That's nothing but a warm up for us.
That's right. That's right.
Well, listen, I mean, what's nice is none of us tapered and shaved, you know, going into this thing. We did it.
Absolutely not.
We did it tired.
That's right.
That's important. Yeah. I mean,
no peeking going on through the open. Nobody should peek in the open, right?
Right. But if you see someone like shaved down for this thing, then you know they're serious. I mean, they're taking this thing like this is real.
That's right. No, I have not shaved in quite some time. So we are fully going after this open as if it we did not have a competitiveness to us, and as if there was not something on the line, but there actually does. There is something on the line, which we haven't announced what that's going to be yet, and actually will be announced sometime soon. I think listeners will be able to choose as to what our loser's punishment will be. But for the most part, well done, fellas, on week 1. And now we can jump right into week 2. The announcement just came out. This is a brutal workout. It's deceptively awful. I mean, I think all of us know that, you know, we've done a lot of ascending, descending ladders in the past. And, you know, you hear a lot of the commentators going through it, talk about how terrible rounds 7, 8, 9, 10 are. It's deceiving when you start to get to those rounds. But Chad, I want to start with you. If you saw this workout, obviously the deadlift is going to be an enormous component of it. Just want to start with you in terms of strategy when you look at this workout.
For sure. I know I like it. I mean, any CrossFit workout scares me, but it scares me far less than the 22.1 that we just did, to be honest with you. I'm especially, you know, 225 pound deadlifts, you know, not just for me, but in general, I think that's a great number for the community to be able to handle it and hopefully maintain a little bit of quality in their movement and everything else. And so for me, that's what it's about. You know, how can you pace the deadlifts? And I'm going to speak in terms of the deadlifts more than the burpees, of course, but how can you pace the deadlifts for yourself to be able to maintain quality? Because here's the thing, a lot of people are going to do a completely rounded back Romanian deadlift, just like I saw a lot of people do with these dumbbell snatches on the last workout. And even so, the commentators are talking about what parts of your body is it going to blow up? And yeah, it's going to hit the hamstrings and in the low back and in the glutes. But one of the things that I like to focus on for myself and what I recommend, a big recommendation, the first recommendation for me is to focus on sinking the hips a little bit more than you normally would. And that's going to help you include more of the body. And what I'm talking about is on the way down, you know, especially if you're going to be doing touch and go, try to sink those hips on the way down. That's going to put you in a position that is going to include more of your body. So a little bit more of the quads as opposed to only the low back, the hamstrings, in the glutes. And then rep after rep, you know, save a little bit of energy overall. It's going to be more difficult to do. I get it. The longer that you go, but the more you do that, the more you focus on that, the better chance you're going to have to maintain, you know, core tension, specifically a tight back with those hips a little bit lower, to sustain that for a little bit longer as you go through the workout. Now, that being said, you know, my second recommendation is going to be tight back. So focus on that. But the third one is don't be afraid to do singles, you know, pretty quickly. You know, one of the things that I heard, I think one of the athletes say in particular is she felt that she went out too hard, too fast. And that's a common, easy, I guess, quote unquote, mistake to make there. But I wouldn't be afraid to drop the singles, you know, very quickly, you know, even on the round of 4 or 5. And I know like a lot of athletes and a lot of coaches are going to be like, that's ridiculous. Nobody needs to do that. But it really doesn't take that much longer to do a deadlift, drop it, lean over and grab it again and go than it does to do touch and go. For what you're saving on each rep, in the long run, you're going to save so much energy on not doing so many touch and go reps than the time on each individual set that it's going to save you by just blowing up and doing, you know, sets of touch and go sets of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and especially 10. So don't be afraid of the singles. Don't think that they're wrong. There's no shame in doing singles and doing them quickly. I promise you, as long as you are able to make yourself lean back over and immediately go again, then you're almost just as fast as touch and go reps.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at the games athletes, you mentioned, Emma mentioning it, maybe he went out a little too fast and realized that. I think it's a terrible strategy to watch these games athletes and try to use their strategy as a marker. Like,
absolutely.
Justin was like, okay, what's Justin's strategy? I'm going to start fast, go in the middle. I'm going to go as fast as I can. I'm going to try to end really fast. Like that strategy is not going to work for anyone who's not a games level athlete. Yeah. So I think, Chris, we'll come to you in a second with regards to the pacing component here. But Chad, for you, so you're saying that not that you would do this, but you would recommend starting out with some singles, drop the bar, reset as early as possible if you're feeling like one, back integrity might be an issue, and then also maybe not being able to drop the hips as much might be a little bit challenging for someone that's maybe used to doing a little bit more rounded back type of deadlift.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done workouts like this in the past where I've done singles on all of the deadlifts from the very beginning. And actually for this one, I'm thinking that I'm going to do it twice just for experimentation purposes. I like to experiment anyway. So I think I'm going to do one where I can where I'll hang on to touch and go as long as possible and just try to fight through that and see what happens. And then I'll do one where it's just singles the whole time, no matter if it's just a set of 2, a set of 3, a set of 4, or whatever, and just see what happens. I think it's good to experiment like that. Maybe not in the open, for everyone may not be a good time to experiment, but whether you're doing touch and go reps or not, when you're leaning over and grabbing that bar again, that's where I'm talking about focus on sinking the hips, setting the hips a little bit lower than you think you need to, maybe a little bit lower than you're used to. It's going to help you maintain a better position, better overall quality, better tension where you need that tension to just for quality purpose, but also to save that energy for efficiency and effectiveness purposes.
Mixed grip, would you use mixed grip for this? I know the weight for someone like yourself is not overly challenging, but just to kind of save a little bit of energy there, is that something you would recommend? I see all the athletes doing it, but curious from your perspective if that's a good way to start.
That is a great question, Dave. And what I personally like to do and what I recommend is to mix it up. So, hopefully at this point, I think anyone listening has done CrossFit long enough where you're familiar with a hook grip, you're familiar with an alternating grip, so with an under grip and an over grip. So I like to mix it up, from set to set, depending on what I'm feeling. I may switch the hand that's over and under, and I may do some sets that I just do all hook grip. If you're familiar enough with the hook grip as you should be able to again, if you're doing singles, drop it, lean back over, grab it with a hook grip, and immediately pick it up again without losing any time. So I recommend switching that up a little bit. Another thing along those lines is that I see a lot of athletes doing is, and there's not necessarily anything completely wrong with this, but they're using the same grip and stance width as they do for their max deadlift reps. And again, maybe there's nothing completely wrong with that. And that depends on how you're setting up for the deadlift. If you're always using a very high hip rounded back deadlift, then you should probably change that anyways. But what I'm saying is that if your stance is normally really narrow and your hands are normally positioned really narrow, you're setting up in a way that's going to be advantageous for you to pick up as much weight as possible from one rep. But what might be more efficient in this moment for all these reps is to widen your hands a little bit, widen your feet a little bit, so you have a little bit more room to situate your whole body, your hips a little bit lower, to be able, again, it's about using as much of your body as you can and being more efficient in that way. For me, I typically use my clean deadlift or my clean grip, so the hands are a little bit wider. That's just what I'm comfortable with. It allows me to open up my knees a little bit more and again use a little bit more of my quads and whole body that way.
That's awesome. I like that. It actually fits in well with strategy around handstand push-up too, hand placement with regards to actually what the movement standard is, training towards proper technique with hands underneath shoulders, and then applying hand differently depending on what the workout standard is. But last question for you, Chad, on deadlift that I saw in the workout and that saw a bunch of comments on that were coming through the live feed, the bouncing of the weight. And I'm curious what your thoughts on this. Is an allowable thing right now. You know, the athletes were pretty heavy on the descending portion of the deadlift, bouncing that weight off of the ground, using some of that bounce off of the ground to get back into the next rep. Obviously doing singles, you can't do that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are if someone is looking to link reps up, there's a strategy around bouncing, what your thoughts are about it.
So I actually missed that part. So you're saying that bouncing is allowed?
Well, yeah, I mean, they were bouncing pretty heavily, aggressively on those reps.
Yep.
Yeah, Justin especially was bouncing the crap out of that bar off the ground and kind of using that momentum, to take advantage of some of the ascending portion of the deadlift.
I think, I mean, just a side note here, it seems like maybe they're changing a lot of these standards because people are kind of doing them anyways, and the judging is objective. So certain people are getting away with reps and others aren't. So they're like, well, maybe we should just change the standards. But again, going back to saying that maybe elite CrossFitters, CrossFit Games level athletes aren't always great examples of everything. I think for the most part, they're people to look up to and they're people to learn from. They are, putting up the best times in the world and they are overall moving well. It's just like elite weightlifters. They're overall great examples of movement to emulate, but there are also certain things that they're not great examples of. One of the things that a good athlete is good at doing is compensating. Great athletes are great at compensating. So just because you see Justin doing that and able to bounce and maintain, a good amount of quality and also probably get the best score in the world on this one. I mean, I'm not sure that anybody's going to be able to beat that. We'll see. But for most people to do that, to bounce that hard and that aggressively, it's gonna jolt you out of position. So am I telling you to do a 5-second descent on every single rep? Certainly not. But the more, smooth you can touch and go, I think again, maybe it's slightly slower, but it's about energy conservation in the long run. And it's also about, what's most important to you. Like, yes, the open is important to all of us. Like we're competitive and we want to score the best. We want to place the best score that we can. But at the same time, as an athlete, for overall performance and health and longevity, let's at least think a little bit in terms of, what is best for the movement in general.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chad. And I'm getting a note here saying that judges' course says that bouncing's not allowed, but they were allowing on the camera. So
Gotcha.
Not quite sure exactly what standard is kind of going after here when it comes to that, but just curious. Chris, let's jump to you. I know from your perspective, I want to hear how the pacing component comes into play here and what your thoughts are when you watched it.
Yeah, I like this workout. I like this workout a lot. I think that there's just a lot of good tests for an athlete. And the key though, in this workout, and we didn't talk about it last week, I want to address it this week, is the ownership side of this, that the athlete needs to take some responsibility. And too many times we see that athletes will come to their coach and say, can you help me come up with a plan? This is where athletes have to practice. And the great ones are really good at coming up with a plan. And there's a couple key ingredients in coming up with any plan. And we'll talk specifically about this workout in my recommendations. The first thing that when you're thinking of a plan is you must look at the total time that the workout's going to take. Now, what's nice about this is that CrossFit established 10 minutes. So we know that it's going to take you 10 minutes. For most of us, it's going to be 10 minutes. So based upon 10 minutes, we know that that's a time domain where we have to pace. Anything over 3 minutes, you don't have an ability to take it out fast and just hang on. You've got to control that intensity because you don't have unlimited energy. You've got to use up that energy to make sure that by the time you use up that last drop, you made it through that 10-minute barrier and you can now lay on the ground and be finished. So 10 minutes is a pacing-based approach, and we have to be able to conserve that energy. And so how would you pace this if you've never done it before? Well, that's the key, is that you have to do some groundwork beforehand. Practice a little bit. For example, one of the things that was interesting was Justin Medeiros, his slowest burpee was 3 minutes and 3 seconds. So just add that up. I mean, you're doing 100 burpees times, 3 minutes and 3 seconds. There you go for him.
Wait, what do you mean? Can you, his slowest burpee was
it took
3
him,
minutes?
Yeah. And then, I'm sorry, 3 seconds, 3.3 seconds. Sorry.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, edit that out. So his slowest burpee was 3.3 seconds. His slowest deadlift was 1.7 seconds. Laura's slowest burpee was 3.1. But now the deal is that Laura was taking a lot of break in between before starting those burpees, which doesn't get counted in this. But if you think about the amount of time it's taking these high caliber athletes 3 to 3.5 seconds to do a burpee. So you need to figure out what your target would be. On the deadlift, like I said, Justin was 1.7 seconds per, and Laura was 1.5 seconds per deadlift. So my recommendation is that you have to treat this workout and look at it in terms of checkpoints to make sure that you're not going out too hot. That would be the kiss of death in this workout, because we saw Laura Horvath go out blazing fast. That deadlift was light for her. Yeah. I mean, Justin Medeiros, that was the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, Chad, was, his deadlift is over 500 pounds. And it actually, we saw him pause at the deadlift on the top of the pole somewhere around 5 minutes into this workout. Ironically, that's where Laura Horvath on the back end, she was having difficulty 5 minutes in. To me, the 5 minute point is where this thing gets real. This is where we saw them struggle halfway. So my recommendation would be where do you want to be at halfway? Meaning at 5 minutes in. What would be a target for you? Are you way ahead? Are you way behind? And this is important because every strategy as athletes, you think about it beforehand, and then you evaluate your performance afterwards. If you think that you're going to finish this thing in 9 minutes and you don't finish, what was the reasoning behind it? And this is how you grow. This is how you learn. This is how you mature as an athlete, is that you evaluate your plan. If you had a shot to do it again, could you do it better? And too many times athletes, they're not thinking about it. They're just sitting down and going. They don't learn. And so they make the same mistakes over again. So number one, it's a 10-minute time domain. Recommend in your training, in your practice leading up to it, get an idea of how long it takes you to do these burpees on average. How long does it take you to do the deadlifts, and put a guess in on what you'll be at 5 minutes into this particular workout. Now, there's two other pieces that I want to talk about. The first one is that you need to think about, where's this workout going to give you trouble? Where is it going to be the point where you say this thing just got real, where you now need to breathe through your ears and you got blood coming down the eyeballs? You got to know where that is. You don't want to be surprised when you get to a sticking point, because here's why. The brain will evaluate your level of pain and it will evaluate your remaining distance. And if it is sitting there and thinking, wow, we never planned on it hurting this bad at this point, meaning your before you start workout perceived amount of pain was significantly less than what it actually is. If there's a mismatch between your actual pain at that sticking point versus what you thought it was going to be, and you underestimated that pain, what will happen is the brain will sit there and say something is wrong. And now you are in trouble. And with 100% certainty, you will underperform. So you must think about, where is your sticking point and how much is it going to hurt when I get there, so that you're not surprised. Now, what I noticed in this workout was it got real for both athletes. And I'm talking about Laura and Justin, 5 minutes in for both of them. Now for Justin, it wasn't nearly as bad, but he did take some pauses at the top of the deadlift 5 minutes in. Laura even commented that this thing got real on the back end on rounds 9, 8, and 7. Well, round 8, she was somewhere, at that same sticking point. So you have to establish where that will be for you. And a sticking point, what it means is if I can get past that point, meaning if Laura got past that 7th round, she realized that she was getting close enough to the finish where the confidence would start hyping her up and she could rally and bring it to the finish line. So remember, that sticking point is the point where after you get through it, your confidence builds because you're getting close enough to that finishing line. Now, the last point that I want to bring up is, when do you make that move to the finish, that finishing kick? And what I saw was Laura made that sprint to the finish with 1:13 to go. Justin made a sprint to the finish with 1:19 to go. Now that's interesting. There's two movements, and you got to look at the movements and how long were they sprinting in those movements. So for Laura, it was 36 seconds for each of them. And Justin was 40 seconds. That is spot on. If you take off 40 seconds in a movement before the finish line, you're going to blow up. The muscles will shut down and you're never going to finish with that kind of velocity. So my recommendation would be is, it takes courage, like what Justin did with 1:19 go, to bring it home. So don't think that you're going to start putting on the gas and hitting the afterburners with that 1:20 to go. For me, I would start hitting the gas somewhere inside of a minute to go.
Inside a minute.
Inside of a minute. That would be a phenomenally long amount of time. 30 seconds of each movement. That would be an incredible amount of time.
I noticed something on the pacing side, Chris. Is all like such intricate stuff that I think most people miss out on when they just have a first glance at a workout. So I love talking to you about some of these pacing things, but I'm starting to take a closer look at myself about certain things after talking to you. And one of the things I noticed is just their halfway split between Justin and Laura, again, just the two top finishers. And Laura was, so fast out of the gate. Like you could tell, like I looked at it as she was testing it out to see how much she could sustain, like how far into it she could sustain her pace. Yep. And clearly she reached a point where she just started fatigue, hands on knees, standing around a lot in the second half. But she got done with half of the reps. So basically finished her deadlifts in the round of 10 at 3:22. So she was just over 3 minutes and she was halfway done, which is nuts. Yep. Justin was 21 seconds behind that. He was at 3:43 halfway through.
Yep.
So he was a little bit considerably behind where Laura was halfway through. Laura just shut it down. But I think this was kind of something that Laura's going to look at. I would be hard pressed to think that she's not going to try this again. I think she'll probably give this another try and use this first one. Not to say that every games athlete will do it. Most of the time you'll see an open workout games athlete give it a second try, because first one's to test it, in a new environment in front of everyone. It's not the optimal place to like put up top score. But I think Laura's strategy was one where she anticipated doing it again. And like, I'm going to go as hot out of the gate as I possibly can. And she used this, Chris, almost like what you're talking about. She used this first go at it to test out and see where that fatigue point started to kick in. And you can see that downward side took her about 6 minutes. It took her 6 minutes to finish the last half. So she was 2/3 of her time around the back end.
Yep.
So I think if she kind of paces out the first part of that first half, she can definitely get under that 9:30 that she got this first time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that Laura, what we saw on the back end when she knew she was starting to blow up, you saw her look at the competition and she was just trying to win. And you're right. She learned something about this, that it got real for her at that 8th round on the way back down. And, a lot of people, here's the thing is she's trying to figure out the best possible way to perform. She is learning and experimenting. And a good analogy would be is if you've never run a mile for time, if you've never done it before, then how do you know your strategy? You really, it's very difficult to figure that out. But once you do it and you've taken responsibility of that mile for time, meaning you don't rely on the coach, you come up with your plan. And now you have some hindsight where you can correct your plan, refine it, so you never make the same mistake again. If you never run a mile, I can't tell you how many times that I see athletes run a mile for time and they do that first lap and it's 20 seconds faster than their third lap. And it's like, they just didn't know. And that's what Laura was trying to figure out was maybe I could hang on till I get to the point where my confidence builds because I'm getting close to the finish line. And the truth is that she just, when the wheels came off, she was just too far from the finish.
Right. Yeah. But the the thing I think it was important from when I saw it was that there was strategy there. It wasn't, I'm just going to go and then just when it falls off, it falls off. I think it was strategy to say, I anticipate doing this again, hoping to find out where that sticking point is. And I think that's more of a veteran athlete approach. And someone, I know, Chris, you've worked with Laura for a while and you know kind of what she's capable of. But to me, I saw her come out and I thought she's using this as a test, not to put up a top score, but use this to kind of see where fatigue point is going to be.
Yeah, but like we were talking about earlier, we've got to be really careful in comparing most people against them because, you know, I mean, Chad, the deadlift weight for both of them was ridiculously easy, yet it did cause them some trouble.
Yeah, that's scary to think for the normal human being, if they were breaking up their deadlifts and standing with holding the bar, what it's going to be like for the normal human beings out there.
Right. So if it's 40% of your one rep weight, like Justin Medeiros, it's like, look at the trouble that he had. Well, imagine if you're within, you know, 15, 20% of your one rep weight. I mean, that's going to be big time problem for you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's what, you know, I think the points that we always try to get across is there has to be some thought. And so, Chris, you said there has to be some thought to your plan. You need to think it through, maybe practice it a little bit. You know, one of the things that I did when I was more serious about the Open is there was an Open announcement, and either that day or the next day, I would run through a couple rounds of it just to see what it felt like, to help me develop a strategy and a plan, because I need as much of a plan as I can get. But another thing too is that when I'm moving through the workout, and what I hope other athletes will do as they're moving through the workout is not just move in general, but actually think about something, try to feel a certain part of your body to give you some awareness of what's going on and to move a little bit better. You know, so when I say sink your hips, tighten your back, I mean, at minimum, you can think of one or both of those things as you're moving through those reps, whether you're doing touch and go or not. So I think a big theme here, and one of the things that I want to get across to athletes that are doing CrossFit workouts in general is to think about what you're doing. Just think about it. You know, I'm not telling you to focus intently on 3 different key areas or parts of the movement when you're doing a snatch. When you're doing a max snatch, you need to focus that intently, that extremely. But when you're moving through a CrossFit workout, I understand it's hard to think and to count and to do all those things at the same time. But if you can at least focus on one part of your body, one part of the movement, that will at least be better than none.
Yeah, the counting is, I would think that in this workout, the counting will get confusing. You know, when you're rested, it doesn't seem like it's going to be complex, but as soon as fatigue comes in, and I know you guys are short time domain athletes, and so I'm going to give you a little bit of background. When you are tired,
Appreciate that.
Very difficult to do simple math of like, wait a minute, am I on round 7 or is that round 8? Well, imagine if you're finishing 9, you go into 10 and now you're at 9, it will get very confusing. I used to have a coach in college and track, and we would do intervals, and he was trying to teach us about strategic thinking. You know, I mean, competitors, if you want to be a competitor, you have to think strategically. And what he was doing is giving us index cards and having us solve simple math equations under high rates of fatigue. And it's very, very difficult to do. So what you have to do is make sure that the judge is aware to keep you in the loop. And what you were seeing Justin Medeiros do with his judge is the fingers were out and he knew exactly where he was on his counts. The last thing that you want to do is get confused. You know, Fraser brought up an interesting comment in there about Justin and what he was doing on the burpees, that he was alternating directions versus Panchak was doing nothing but circling. And that can create a level of dizziness on top of the fatigue, which would also hamper your ability to count. So yeah, you don't want simple things like, where am I, to cloud your brain, to get in the way of what you're trying to accomplish.
I would say, Chris, that simple arithmetic and simple mathematics are challenging for both Chad and I when we're not fatigued. So yes, doing it under high intensity would be something that we have to be extra considerate of.
Hey,
Oh,
maybe that's one of the possible challenges for the losers. You have to do a CrossFit workout and then do some long algebraic equation or something.
some whiteboarding with
Yeah,
I like it. Yeah.
Well, a couple last minute things that I just want to touch on. We haven't really touched on the burpee very much at all. And Chris, you brought up something that Matt mentioned that I think is worth noting again, just being smart about. I don't think it's something that the everyday CrossFitter is going to have to worry about because of the pace that they're going to be doing the burpees. You're not going to be going so fast that dizziness is going to be a factor. For a games level competitor, definitely something a little bit more that you need to be aware of. The standard, though, something that happened again in 2021 for the first time, being able to take off and land 1 foot at a time. Doesn't need to be a two-footed takeoff, doesn't need to be a two-footed landing. No, you don't need to face the bar either. There's a lot of side shuffling that's happening. No opening of the hips. Just get over the bar. Just get over the bar. So when you're doing it, just be aware of that. You know, it's not something you have to kind of get this incredible strict standard on. It's basically just trying to get over the bar as efficiently as possible rather than worrying about trying to hit any particular target with the burpees. The other thing from my perspective, and Chad, we talked about this in the beginning, but just think about a lot of us out there, how much time we spent talking about positioning, and you specifically, Chad, with regards to 21.1 with the dumbbell snatch with back integrity. And I know myself and a lot of people that I'm at the gym with here in Oregon, a lot of us had sore backs after doing 22.1, and that was with a relatively lightweight, you know, compared to what's going to be happening this week. Back integrity and just being aware of what this is going to feel like the day after on your lower back, especially if you're not used to doing high rep, relatively high weight deadlifts, how this is going to affect you the next day. So I would just put extra emphasis on making sure that everyone listens to the first part of this podcast one more time to what Chad's talking about in terms of dropping hips more, being aware of back integrity when you're doing this, because this is so many reps of a relatively high weight of deadlifts for most people that you don't want to be blown up the day after, especially if you intend to potentially do this more than once.
Exactly. Yeah. The potentially doing it the second time makes all that even more important, because, you know, you completely blow yourself up in that regard. Then the second time is, you're not going to have as good of a chance to perform better on that second go around, and to be able to apply all those lessons that you learned, because you need to be able to recover physically to be able to apply a better plan on the second turn.
Awesome. I love it, guys. Good luck on this one. I do want to hear some predictions and expectations for yourselves. Chad, this one's kind of up your alley on deadlift side. I know burpees aren't your favorite, but what are you thinking about?
Man, you know what, of all the watching the open announcement and the thinking I've been doing about the deadlifts, I haven't even thought about what is going to be possible for me, to be honest with you. I can't even give you a good number. I mean, if we're going off of, let's see, I did a little over 6 rounds on the last one, and then the best score in 22.1 was it from Mal? Was she the highest
392.
So that's 13 rounds. So I'm under half. So, you know, I might get, in that sense, I'm going to end up doing something like maybe get halfway through. If I'm comparing,
I think you'll get a little further than deadlift for the sticking point for most people. You probably get a little further than halfway.
I want to under promise and over deliver, Dave. That's what I want to do. So that's what I'm sticking with.
Fair enough. What about you, Chris?
So I messed up last week. I didn't realize that I'm in the old person category, and I could have used 35 pounds. So now my deadlift, 50? Yeah, my deadlift weight is 185, but still though, for me, I mean, Chad, my one rep now is probably 260-ish.
Yeah.
So this is going to get hard for me. Now, one of the things that I have an advantage on is that I've got incredible stamina. So even though my 1 rep isn't great, my 3 rep relative, that one isn't that great. My 50 rep relative is pretty good.
Right.
So it worries me a little bit. It seems heavy. And that's why I keep bringing up about Justin's number. That was a light number for him, and it still caused him a little bit of trouble. I'm going to expect this is going to cause me some trouble even at 185. And that makes me nervous. But if I can get to that 10th, that round of 10, that would be great. And I'm going to then chill out there. If I can make it there, I'm going to that's where I'm going to recover, and then I'll hit it again. I need to have a point in this workout where I can give myself some relief. And so my plan would be is I'm going to go fairly hard until if I can get to 10, and then kind of calm down and take it really easy on those burpees and get my breath back. But I'm mostly, like Dave said, I'm nervous about that deadlift.
Me too.
Well, I feel like I've seen you do a few capacity WOD deadlift workouts with 185.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm not too worried about you. I think you're going to handle this better than you think. And most importantly, just beat Dave on this one. Just beat Dave. That's all you got to do.
I am at the top of our leaderboard right now. So
you are. See that we got to take him down. So
see what happens on this one. I think getting past the halfway point, maybe into the rounds of 9s or maybe into the rounds of 8s would be kind of a goal for this one. Maybe into the rounds of 8s on the back end.
Since I know that's what you're aiming for, Dave, that gives me some extra motivation. There you go. Maybe I got to make it further than halfway.
I really like this workout. It's interesting, isn't it, that there's only 3 open workouts, and so far what CrossFit has done is created workouts for the average CrossFitter, and that they could wrap their head around this.
Right.
It's not something that's overly technical. It's a difficult time domain, but it's manageable. I'm pleased at what they're doing. I'm just worried now about next week being double unders and chest to bar.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I just hope there's no pull-ups or
they're coming.
Muscle ups or something like that. I mean, come on, keep them out of there. They're too technical for everyone to do.
They're too technical. They're coming, and if we see double unders, we're gonna have a special guest to come on and potentially give some insight into that. So looking forward to week 3, but we got to get through 2 first.
Do you think that it'll more likely be pull-ups or toes to bar?
I don't know.
I think that they scale that way with toes to bar. So I think that you guys will do chest to bar, and then I'll end up getting to do something like knees to chest.
Really?
Well,
the benefit of being, no, I'm kidding, Dave.
No, that sounded very sincere.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Well, let's face it, Dave, if there's chest to bar and we're all doing them, I mean, you might as well just take the gold medal.
Hey, this is CrossFit, guys. This is they're testing the I guess I'm more in the middle. I'm more of that middle of the bell curve than you two are. You guys are absolute end of the spectrum. I would be a little bit more towards the center, I guess.
Yeah, but let's face it, if this workout was written for Chad, that deadlift would be 500 pounds.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I actually saw somebody write in the comments that Castro had originally written this workout. It was 315 and not 225, and that they changed it to 225.
I think there's been 315 in the Open before. Even more. Yeah,
there is. But, that was one of the things that, I've been doing CrossFit since 2008. And when I started, I wasn't even safe enough to do a deadlift other than just the bar. And after 3 years, I get to 225, and then they change what RX is. They reestablished RX, and then we're telling me that my 225 was scaled, and that never sat right with me. Is that why are they calling mine scaled? RX should be the higher weight.
Yeah,
and it's nice that it's back to what it used to be. I mean, look at all the old named workouts. It was at 225. Right. And this whole thing of changing, we need to have a standard of what's the goal? What is health? And what is fitness? And is it 315 or is it, 405? Is it 225?
Right.
And it never sat well with me. And I love that it's back to something where the more recreational person can look at it and go, oh, I don't have to scale a number that is unreasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, of course, that's always going to be different for different people. But like I said in the beginning, I think 225 is, a great number if we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. And it's just a much better number. And there's no reason. I mean, I'm glad for all of the, I guess, what we can call experimentation that went on with open workouts in the past with those bigger numbers. But I think 225 is definitely more fair and manageable for most people. So
Yeah.
glad to see that. And then of course the 180 is 185 for the females, right?
Yep.
Yep. So that's a great number as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, guys. I may actually get off of this recording and go give it a try for the first time right now. So
excellent. Well, before we jump off, Chad, you can do our closing here. But any
wait, I have one question.
Yeah.
Who do you think's going to win?
I think this is a Tia workout. I think Tia's gonna.
Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to make a prediction. So, by the way, I got a text message from Roman Krenikov today, and you saw denouncing this whole war and the whole thing that's going on, and he got his visa a while ago. He's in Madison right now. As soon as this thing happened, he's like, I got to get out of here, and he left Russia.
Wow.
So he's sitting in Madison, and there is some motivation from this guy. This is a good workout for him, a really good one for him. It's a moderate weight, and this guy can burn that engine like nobody's business. So I've got to say that 7:30. That's going to be the winning time.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Well, I'll definitely keep an eye out for him.
I mean, if we're going to make a pick, let's just make something. Make a pick.
I like 7:30. Yeah. I'm gonna make a special note of where I'm at 7:30 in the workout and where I'm at whatever. I can't remember what Justin's time was, but where I'm at that specific time as well, just for comparison. That's going to be interesting. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Again, I look forward to hearing what your scores are. I look forward to hearing what the open workout is next week and finishing this thing out. Hopefully I don't end up on the bottom, but I look forward to seeing one of you two guys face the challenge that we have for the losers. And to our listeners, as always, we very much appreciate you guys listening in. Be sure to head over to powermonkeykfitness.com for service and upcoming events. Also, check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, at Ollie Chad, and also check out Chris at Hinshaw 363 or Aerobic Capacity. Guys, on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.